Hello and welcome to this live from the UEF live comment on the state of the European Union. We have with us the man behind the memes, one of the most influential people in Brussels, especially on social media, Quentin Deschandelliers, also known as MEPassistant. How do you say MEPassistant, MEPassistant?
It depends. The French say MEPassistant, the others say MEPassistant, so I accept both pronunciation. I'm inclusive on that sense.
Okay, very good. So Quentin, nice to have you here. What did you do this morning?
Oh, it was a very busy morning. I don't know about you, but no, I was actually live streaming on my channel because I do memes, but I also do explanation about EU politics on Twitch. So this morning I was streaming the live the speech on the State of the Union, and yeah, that kept me busy. It was very interesting. The audience was fairly interested. So a very busy morning. That's for sure. Very interesting morning as well.
Yeah. Okay, great. So, first of all, thank you for everyone joining this live. So if you have questions, do ask them in the comment section and we'll do our best to answer them. Also with our guest at 12, we will receive Sandro Gozi, the chair of the Spinelli Group, and Domenec Ruiz Devesa, the president of the UEF. We will ask them questions, your questions, to understand what they thought about the SOTEU, the State of the European Union address this morning by the President of the European Commission. So, Quentin, my first question to you, what did you think? What's your main takeaway from this State of the Union address?
I mean, it was, hot takes, it was relatively safe in the sense that it was a lot of a taking stock exercise. Like Ursula von der Leyen looking back on everything that was done in the last 4 years and say, okay, we achieved a lot as European Union, including when facing very important and unexpected crisis. Of course, the COVID, of course, the war in Ukraine. So it was not that much like a classic State of the Union where there is a lot of announcement of new initiative, because we are at the end of the mandate. There is less than a year away before the European election, so it's not really the kind of speech where she can make a lot of announcements. There were a few, but not as much as you usually have. It's more like a taking stock exercise, bearing in mind that of course there's a lot of speculation whether Ursula von der Leyen wants to come back for the next commission. She still hasn't said if she wants to, but you could already see that she was projecting, let's say, in the longer term on important policies such as the Green Deal, on strategic autonomy, etc., etc. But still, despite it was taking stock exercise, there was still like quite a few interesting moments, like for instance on the Green Deal, where she seems to reposition a little bit the center of gravity of the Green Deal, notably probably to answer concerns from the EPP, from farmers, and so to retake, let's say, more economic concerns in the Green Deal, which was something that a lot of people were wondering what she would do. And what I thought like was the most interesting and unexpected, whole discussion on the link between enlargement policy and treaty changes, where she took pretty strong position against what President of the Council, Charles Michel, has been saying, pretty strong position against the conditionality between enlargement policy and treaty changes that was notably pushed by Germany and to a lesser extent France. So that was, I would say, the most unexpected part of the speech as far as I'm concerned. And she was pretty light on other topics that I thought she would speak more, like on migration policy. She spoke a bit about it, but she didn't go too much into detail. But nonetheless, a very interesting exercise for sure.
Yeah, totally agree. Very interesting. I think we'll talk more in detail later about treaty change and enlargement. But yeah, definitely the link that was made between the two. She said, although that she would support treaty change through a convention, she said that to enlarge, we don't need to wait for treaty change. So I think that's the important takeaway for me, for especially in regards to the topics that interest the UEF, treaty change, and democratization. etc. But yeah, indeed, very interesting State of the Union address, especially because commentators or when we were thinking about what she would said, a lot of us were thinking, there's not going to be a lot of policies put forward. She's going to present the bilan of her term, and so actually she did not announce a lot of big policies, new policies, but nonetheless there was a few interesting ideas put forward. I mean, I just listed this no means no law to protect women from sexual violence, a clean transition dialogue with businesses, anti-subsidy investigation to Chinese electric cars. So these are just a few, but already there are a few ideas for the next 300 years. 300 years, nothing.
Yeah,
300
at the same
days.
at the same time, she was making references to a lot of interested parties. Like, for instance, like the point that you just mentioned, the fact that the commission will open an investigation on Chinese subsidies on electric cars. That was something that was pushed very strongly by the French government lately. So it's a way of trying to say, okay, I hear you. We're going to do that. So it was a lot of beyond the taking stock exercise, was a lot of name checking, let's say, priorities for some key players, whether member states, whether political groups, and so on and so forth. So it's interesting also to see who she particularly listened to politically to set the priorities for the future.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also another question that was that we expected a lot of answers on is on the Green Deal. Because Frans Timmermans, the commissioner who had this portfolio, left for Dutch politics, and now we have a new commissioner designate for this portfolio, but the groups didn't like it so much, these proposals. So she said, we want to continue, but at the same time, 300 days before the European elections, nothing more will be put on the table. I think this inquiry into Chinese electric cars, this clean transition dialogue, is more like little patches to.
Yeah, it's more short-term things. Like it's not like a huge policy. And to be fair, I mean, when it comes to the Green Deal, a lot has been done since 2019. The Green Deal has been ongoing. But on the Green Deal, she did a bit of a balancing exercise. Like the main part in the main discussion of the Green Deal in her speech is, let's say it, mostly a love letter to the EPP and to their priorities. And then in the reaction to a political group, she dialed back a little bit to say, okay, the Green Deal, I'm still committed to it. It's something that is personal to me because I have grandchildren now, so I care about their future. So say, okay, I still care about the Green Deal. I'm not renouncing to the Green Deal, but at the same time, politically, she's like, okay, now we need to look at also how to make it work for companies, for the economy, etc., etc.
Yeah. So do you think she listened to a few European leaders who asked for a regulatory pause on the green policies?
I mean, she didn't say anything about a regulatory pause, that's for sure, but there was already like a music in the air that the Commission would now focus more on implementation. Like there's been already a lot of laws, so okay, let's apply what is already there, and then a political readjustment because of EPP of the EPP, the whole nature restoration law drama before summer, which said, okay, we need to also take care of farmers, of agriculture. She linked it a lot to innovation, and also interestingly, even if that's something that was done already before, she linked a lot the Green Deal to strategic autonomy. She name checked a lot of time. China is probably the country that was name checked a lot, the most in the speech, in saying, okay, we have, because of the Green Deal, because of the implication for our industry, for our competitivity, for our strategic autonomy. That means that not only do we need rules, but we need our economy to take up these rules and apply them. We need innovation. We need to make new trade deals to secure certain critical raw materials. So she expanded, let's say, on the scope of the Green Deal. Say, okay, it's not just like the regular the biodiversity rule. It's not just the laws that we apply for the EU. There is all the rest. There is the entire ecosystem that has an impact on that, which is something it's not new, and it's something that we had heard before in previous speeches. But still, she's enlarging a bit the scope of the Green Deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Before we come to treaty change, maybe a few words on enlargement. She really took a strong stance on supporting Bulgaria and Romania to join the Schengen area. That's
yeah. I mean, the Commission was a bit frustrated. So dialing back, Romania and Bulgaria have been at the door of the Schengen area for quite a long time, and they've been demanding to join the Schengen area for quite a long time. But they need the approval of the existing members of the Schengen area. And if I'm not mistaken, late last year, I think December, if I'm not mistaken, but correct me if I'm wrong, the last votes happened and they were blocked by notably Austria. Before there was the Netherlands were also a bit blocking, and the Commission is a bit frustrated with that because they know it's a political problem. It's not the problem that Bulgaria and Romania do not fulfill the criteria for join Schengen. They do. It's just that for reason of internal politics, some member states are blocking it. So the Commission is saying, don't block them because they fulfill the criteria. So it's another like a push towards in the council to tell them to show a bit of solidarity to their own members.
Yeah, certainly. Then let's make a link from enlargement to treaty change slowly. That's for a few months now, I hear this little music that enlargement and treaty change are not complete opposites now. It's actually something that can work together. And I think she said it particularly well when she said, actually she said, no, we don't need to wait for treaty change, but I feel like now in the European public debate, when we talk about enlargement, there's this idea that we also need treaty change, and we need treaty change also to prepare enlargement. She took a slightly different approach, but at least she stays in this view of linking the two concepts together.
No, I mean the question of treaty change has been in the air for quite some time. It's nothing new, but the push, the refocus on enlargement policy because of Ukraine, because of the war in Ukraine, and also the situation in the Western Balkan, put front and center a key issue that would justify then treaty change is, can the EU function at 30 plus when in some areas we are facing issues with a lack of qualified majority. There is a lack of consensus between member states on in which direction the EU should even go. More integration, less integration. So there is this moment. We're reaching this moment where the EU will be a bit back to the wall. We'll have to change the treaty to adapt to what it wants in the future. And some member states who are open to the idea of a treaty change have been linking it to enlargement to entice Eastern Europe, for instance, to support treaty changes in some areas. And today, Ursula von der Leyen took a very clear stand that she did not want it to link directly the two issues. But at the same time, it's not very clear to me yet how she wants to proceed to it. Say, oh yeah, but at the same time, we will do reports on looking at how the enlargement could potentially impact certain areas of the EU, how we function, and whether there is a need to change something. So it's a bit awkward, or it's not very clear on how you can say at the same time we can enlarge without doing the treaty change, but at the same time say, okay, enlargement could have an impact on the EU, so we need to look at whether there is treaty change necessary. So, I mean, this whole discussion between enlargement and treaty changes has turned a bit into the chicken and the egg kind of discussion. But today she took a very clear stand towards one direction, which is more towards the countries that want to join the EU, who, I mean, and for legitimate reasons, particularly for the Western Balkans, have been growing more and more frustrated with the EU because there's a feeling that the EU is constantly moving the goalpost in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, specifically on Ukraine, I mean, the European support to Ukraine is going to continue, is going to reinforce itself. 15 billion euros investment to Ukraine, the Ursula von der Leyen announced. So actually, do you think? I think Ukraine will join the European Union. That's a given. But when? Do you think the next legislature will be the one to welcome Ukraine? Are we talking about a time frame of 5 years or longer?
That would be extremely ambitious to have Ukraine join within the next mandate, because I mean, Ukraine has the status of candidate country, but the negotiation for adhesion have not really started. Like they're still in the preliminary phases when they need to fulfill a first set of requirements, and we will wait at the end of the year. The Commission will present a bit of report on the progress, and then you will have the negotiation that would take place. And usually, looking at what the adhesion process in the past, that's something that takes time. Like even the most modern country, the countries that are closest to European standard, like for instance, when the Nordic states joined, even for them, it's something that took at least 5 years. So in the context of a country that is still at war, that has a lot of issues, structural issues when it comes to corruption, to the rule of law, economic issues, the whole implementation of the EU acquis, I would tend to say that we're having an adhesion within the next 5 years, which is a demand of the Ukrainians. I'm not certain it will happen. I would be more personally in the view that it would take longer. And in any case, it cannot happen as long as the war is ongoing, because I mean, that would ask way too many questions, because you know that in the Lisbon Treaty there is a sort of mutual defense clause, Article 42.7 of the treaty. Does that trigger if Ukraine suddenly becomes a member state? How does that trigger? And given that the members of the EU who are part of NATO have been very careful to not bring NATO countries directly into the war, they will not want to do that with the EU. So I would say we will need to look at that in a longer term perspective, even if politically it's certain, or at least it's at the moment it's accepted. There is a consensus on the fact that Ukraine should join the EU, which is already something that was not self-evident like 5 years ago. It's already something, but on the close to medium term perspective, it's more the Western Balkans that are the question mark on when will they be ready to join. Because to be fair, some of they've been in the waiting line for 10, 15 years. So for them, I understand that there is some eagerness for them to finally join the club, especially since like everyone agrees that they are part of the European family. They will have to join. They will join at some point in the EU.
Yeah. I take the occasion to thank Davide Negri, which is at the regia of this live stream. So thank you, Davide, for what you're doing. Actually, do you think that the extension of the rule of law report that the president of the Commission announced in her speech, to extension of this report to the candidate countries, do you think that will help them move faster? Here I'm talking specifically about Western Balkans.
Yes, because that since it's an exercise that takes place every year, that means that every year the Commission will be able to make recommendations. So it's a way to nudge them towards in a certain direction without having to wait for the very formal exercise of negotiation, of taking stock exercise, which takes a bit longer. It is not necessarily as concrete as that. So I think it's a way for the EU to already send a political message that, okay, you're almost part of the family, and we also make recommendations to you to help you go faster, and do a bit of a comparison to see, okay, you see what's happening in the other member state, do the same, and so on. So yeah, I think it's something that is meant to help them a bit on that, and also re-insist on the importance of this aspect as part of the of belonging of the EU, because at some point Ursula von der Leyen also said in reference to Hungary, to Poland, that the rule of law is not something that applies only when you want to apply to join the EU, but also when you are in the EU. You are in the EU, so it's an important requirement and at the cornerstone of the EU end of line.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, treaty change now, if you don't mind. So this afternoon there will be a press conference by the rapporteurs of the AFCO report on treaty change. So yeah, this afternoon. So we're very eager to hear what the rapporteurs propose for the future of Europe and the reform of the founding treaties of the European Union. Here's the page on the Parliament's website. So this is going to be this afternoon, I think at 2:30. So yeah, live in 3 hours. If you're interested, right after this live stream, you can head over to the European Parliament's website. So Ursula von der Leyen, yeah, she mentioned that although she doesn't see the need for treaty change to enlarge, she nonetheless supports the idea of treaty change. And last year, the European Parliament put forward a resolution asking for several changes in the treaties, notably to include the recommendations of the Conference of the Future of Europe. So far, the Council still has to react to this demand, and hence this report that will be unveiled this afternoon. What's the state here? I mean, why do we need treaty change, first of all, and second of all, how do you view it? Do you think it will be a fast procedure, a long procedure? Is it needed? I mean, is it like we're waiting for treaty change for quite some time now, haven't we?
Yeah. No, the last treaty change was the Lisbon Treaty, so that takes us back 2009 for the adoption. So yeah, quite a while ago. On where we are, I mean, in the end, there hasn't been much change now compared to last year or the year before, because the Parliament is very eager to have treaty changes, notably to deepen the European integration in some areas, health policy, for instance, since COVID, of course, probably defense with the war in Ukraine, but also like to change the governance of the EU, the voting procedure in council, like on the fact that there is still some areas that are subject to vetoes, to unanimity, and the Parliament would like to get rid of at least part of these vetoes and go the way of the qualified majority, and probably also, of course, strengthen the role of the European Parliament, give it the right of initiative, because today only the Commission can propose legislation at EU level. The Parliament does not have this right, which is one of the key differences between the European Parliament and the national Parliament. So yeah, in Parliament there is clear eagerness. There has been eagerness to do so for years. And it's in its role, and there's nothing new there. The Commission has been playing a bit two sides, saying, "Oh yes, of course, we're open to the idea of treaty changes. There needs to be a European Convention to discuss it." But at the same time, they are aware that there are difficulties in the Council, because the blocking factor is the Council, and that's to go towards like whether it's feasible to have a treaty change. That's going to be extremely challenging for there's many reasons, but for starters, you don't have a consensus within the European Union between the member states on the direction of the EU. If you listen to France, Germany on what the EU should go, and Poland and Hungary, you have very different answers. And given that for legitimate reasons you need to have unanimity to change the treaties, if there's no consensus between member states, well, that makes the whole process a tad bit complicated. And at the same time, that's a bit the contradiction, is that more we advance, the more we realize there is a need to make a treaty change, and member states, even those who are open to the idea of a treaty change, need to overcome also some of the political fears, the political concerns that they may have. You may remember that in 2005, France, the Netherlands killed the what was called back then the constitutional treaty, following negative referendums, and it stayed. And a number of member states are still worried of what would be the result. What would people say if there was a referendum? And can the EU sustain another no to further integration? So there are also like concerns about the acceptability within member states of treaty changes. Again, depending on how far do you go in the treaty changes, and there's a lot of difference between like a complete overhaul and something that is very limited to some key areas. So there are a lot of moving parts in there. And as usual, the council is key, and Parliament this afternoon will be in its role of trying to poke the council and by saying, hey, we have ideas, follow through with them, because we need to.
Yeah, and yeah, you definitely mentioned it in your intervention. Although the president of the European Commission said she supports treaty change, well, that's basically everything she can do, because the decision is in the hand of the council. The Commission has an advisory role when treaty change procedure has been launched, but that's about it. So I mean, that's you could say it's only words.
Exactly, and plus the Commission has to can't exactly burn bridges with the council, and also it's a question of personality. Like Ursula von der Leyen is someone who tends to try to stay on the good side of the council. She's not like Jean-Claude Juncker could be back in the days, in the previous mandate, where he did not hesitate sometimes to a bit rougher to the council, let's say.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we have with us Domenec Ruiz Devesa, president of the UEF. So, I guess you watched the State of the Union. You probably were in the European Parliament. What's your opinion of it? What do you think about it? Did you hear what you wanted to hear?
Well, thank you for the opportunity. And as a matter of fact, I am still watching it because it's still ongoing for another, I expect another 30 minutes or so. And I'll have also, I hope I have the chance to also to intervene in it. I think that the speech was good in general. Maybe in the field of policies, too much focus on process more than delivery. We saw many proposals about summits, conferences, new envoys, new boards for this and that. Not so much, as I said, on achieving new policy objectives or little in general. Looked a bit like a end of term speech, not wanting to make maybe big commitments, given the fact that the European elections are coming up in less than a year. Not necessarily a good choice, I would say, in the sense that, but of course this is to be seen. If she were to run as candidate for president on behalf of EPP, this would have been an opportunity also to outlay the vision, a broader and more in-depth vision for the future. In terms of institutions and democracy, I think it was right that she linked enlargement with deepening. This is very important for us as federalists. And this is something that we have to insist in the coming weeks, also in the summit in Granada, organized by the Spanish presidency of the summit. Enlargement cannot continue to be a process driven by, foreign policy experts a bit on automatic pilot, without regard to the question of unanimity in the council and the overall question of the democratic reform of the union. And then, of course, the big missing item is the European elections. Madame von der Leyen didn't say anything about the conduct of the elections, how to make them more European. let alone the question of transnational lists. But I see that Sandro Gozi has joined. I'm sure he has also things to say on this.
Absolutely, yeah. Sandro, welcome. So Sandro Gozi, you're chair of the Spinelli Group, so the group of Federalist-minded MEPs. So same questions to you. What did you think of the State of the Union address? Did you hear what you wanted to hear, and was there something missing? So the floor is yours.
Well, I think that it was important to call on the sense of history, because we have to prove that we are up to the task as a generation. We are living extraordinary moments. She's right in saying that the last 4 years have been extraordinary years for the world, especially for the Europeans. So it is clear that we have to act as sort of refounding generation. We talk always about the founding fathers. We are called to act as refounding sons and daughters. And this certainly, this call upon us on this, upon the European Union, I thought it was very important. I think that it is clear that the unification of the continent must go together with a deep reform of the European Union. She has been cautious on that point, repeating this phrase of we have to reform the Union and we have to call for a convention and treaty revision if and where it is necessary. I mean, we don't need to repeat this refrain. We know that it is necessary, and so we must do it. I mean, we cannot be put, we federalists, in a position like if we wanted to put condition. Of course, we don't want to put condition to the common future with our Ukrainian sisters and brothers. But we don't want to disappoint them either. And it is clear that if we don't reform the Union, the first to be disappointed will be those people, those citizens who today are outside the Union and are knocking on our door to get in. We have to tidy up the house, to prepare a welcoming house. And so the two things must go together. On that, she has been too cautious. She's been too cautious because in the Council today, there is no appetite for treaty revision, but they will come back to reality very soon. They always say that we are the idealists, although they are the pragmatists, the diplomats and the minister in the Council. It's exactly the opposite. They are dreaming if they think that we can succeed in this historical task of continental unification without reforming the treaty. And we are those who got the feet down on earth, and we know that it is functioning badly with 27 member states. It won't function at all with 36, 37. So on that, we have to give more courage to our president of the European Commission. Who, by the way, she is a member of the UEF, because she's a member of Europe Union, and she's got a federalist card, so we have to use this card better. But apart from this, I think that we must work on this basis. I fully agree with Domenec about our silence on the next European election. It is clear that we have also the way we organize the European election if we want to make a difference. And on that, the battle that we are doing on the new electoral law, on the new composition of the parliament, we are voting today on the new composition of the parliament. We will insist on the new electoral law. All this, we won't give up until the last minute of the last day available. We will continue our fight.
Maybe to bounce back on what already has been, I think one of the key takeaway from her speech, the whole discussion between treaty changes and the link with enlargement. I mean, listening to her this morning, she seemed to take a strong position, saying that we should not wait for treaty changes before enlarging. She made this recurring sentence. Yeah, we were able to agree on this difficult topic at 27. We can do it at 30 plus. We did it on this policy. We can do it at 30 plus. So she seemed to push back against an idea that has been in the air, pushed notably by Germany, saying, "Oh well, if you want to do enlargement, we need to first reform ourselves." So do you think that she's pushing back the issue of treaty changes for further down the line to gain time, or are you concerned that it might complicate things, because to change treaties you need unanimity, and as you said, right now there's no consensus in the council on treaty changes. If we wait until when the Balkans enter, when Ukraine enters, is it going to make the process more complicated? Or for you, we can deal with it, as Salvadorian seemed to be saying this morning? I don't know which one of the two wants to take the lead. I don't know, Mr. Gozi.
Well, I agree that there has been a bit of a double messaging there, no? On the one hand, a commitment to do enlargement and deepening hand in hand. And then, as Sandro said, a commitment to treaty change, but in conditional, no? If and when. And for us Federalists, there is no if, and the when is just a matter of what the process naturally takes. But of course, as soon as possible, at least as soon as possible to start the process, certainly, calling the convention and so on. But I think that we have to bring some points home here. The president herself, for instance, in the speech, called, but one can say, if you want to be a bit cheeky, begged for the accession of Romania and Bulgaria to Schengen. And she's certainly not begging the parliament. The parliament has voted in favor several times, and there is a couple of member states that are blocking this. This is undemocratic, because that means that the minority is deciding for the majority. Of course, unanimity, if it's a natural process, is better. If we are in agreement, fine. But when we are not in agreement, that one or two decide for everyone else, is certainly not democratic, not fair, and not efficient. So to say that we can continue in a way, as she said, fit for enlargement, but without not waiting for treaty change, I think it's in a way clouding the main message, which is the processes to go hand in hand. I think Sandro has also said that we're not saying we need to do everything from the institutional side before we enlarge, but certainly hand in hand, I think it's is a reasonable way out. Also, Stéphane Séjourné said something very important, the president of the Renew Group. She said, we have now Orban, who decides the depth and the pace of the sanctions to Russia. This is unacceptable. So it's just another example. And I think we need, in that regard, a clear message.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have really to do what she said, but we have to do it in a better way she has proposed, because she said, well, we have to get out of this debate back to the 90s or the 80s, not deepening or enlarging. I was at the high school when there was debate deepening or enlarging. She said we have to get rid of that, but then she didn't get rid of that until the end. She didn't draw. Brought her speech till the last conclusion, the very ultimate conclusion, which is we have to do both. We have to do both. There is no option. There is no choice. We have to unify our continent, because our Europe, our union, it was conceived for the continental unification, not for something for the happy few. And at the same time, we have to make it work. We don't have to choose. We cannot choose. We have to do both, and we have to do both at the same time, knowing that we need a simple majority in the Council to trigger the procedure of treaty revision. Tomorrow, here in the Parliament, in the Constitutional Affairs Committee, we will have a debate on the proposal of 5 political groups on treaty revision. We had already asked once to the Council to trigger the process to revise the treaty 1 year ago. The Council pretended we were not clear, pretended it had not understood that we were asking for what the citizens at the Conference of the Future of Union had asked for. That means reform the Union also through a treaty revision. Now we are doing it again. And I think that we have to insist as Federalist and the Spinelli Group to push the Council to decide now to launch the treaty revision after the European elections, because we must put at the center of the European election, together with other important items, also the issue which Europe we want, how we want to reshape Europe, which reform we want to carry out in Europe, how we can make Europe fit for the purpose, which is continental unification.
You just mentioned it, the Constitutional Affairs Committee will present tomorrow proposals to treaty changes. Actually, this afternoon, the lead rapporteurs are doing a press conference to present that. I don't know if you already saw a draft, but what do you expect from this? Or what would you like to see in the proposals made by the AFCO committee on?
Well, I mean, I know the text. It is a text. A text also which is positive. It's advanced. It is even surprising for some aspect if you think that it is supported by several political groups, not only the usual suspect, Renew, SD, the Greens, but also GUE and the EPP. And I think this is very important. I hope that tomorrow we'll have a constructive discussion, and I hope that all the political groups will keep their commitment to support the text until the end. Of course, we are starting a discussion, there will be modifications, we'll table amendments, we'll try to improve, we will try to push forward each of our groups, its priorities, but as a basis, it is a basis which is aimed for what we are just talking about. Make the union fit for the historical purpose, and the historical purpose is unify the continent. So I think that it's a very good basis, and I think that we have to go fast, because we have, as the Council is just about to deciding whether to open negotiation with Ukraine, we must push the Council at the same time to take a decision on Ukraine and to commit itself to launch a treaty revision also by organizing a convention at the end of the 2024 or at the latest at the beginning of 2025. This must be our goal, and this is what we have to explain and our citizens to get the support of our voters at the next European elections.
Mr. Ruiz Devesa, what's your take on the proposal of the AFCO committee to come?
I think it is a very comprehensive proposal, very long. It tackles several articles of the treaty. It's almost like a new treaty in a way. It tackles policy side. It tackles purely institutional side. Of course, decision-making procedures is a Federalist proposal. Something I explain also when I'm asked this question is that I don't need to be in agreement with every proposal that is in the text, because what we want to do here is to trigger Article 48 and organize the convention. And as Sandro said, this should happen after the European elections. My view is this should start the works of the conference in January 2025, because we have had the European elections and the election of the new Commission by the end of the year. So I think this is the most reasonable calendar. Once we are in the convention, of course, the Parliament has to go with this proposal to defend it, but this is not the final version of the treaty, obviously, because it has to be negotiated with Council, with Commission, with the national parliaments. So this is why, as I said, it will be probably impossible for any single MEP, apart from the ones maybe that drafted it, to agree 100% with the proposal. But the important thing is the music here, not so much the lyrics.
And you just mentioned, so you would like to see the next parliament become like the parliament that will be the one to change the treaty or see a change in the treaties. But in the meantime, you have the European elections. They are, of course, like in the speech of today, even if it was mostly a taking stock exercise, you could see like some topics that will be important for the election, the Green Deal, the war in Ukraine, but also enlargement and treaty changes. And something that has been question mark until now is, will we see or not a return to the so-called Spitzenkandidat system? So the parliament indirectly deciding who will be the president of the parliament, because like it was in 2014 when Jean-Claude Juncker became president of the Commission, but not for Ursula von der Leyen. So would you, and it's an important way also to make the elections matter for citizens, because it's a way to determine you get to decide who becomes the president of the commission. It's not the member state who do. So are you optimistic about a comeback of the Spitzenkandidat, or we should move on from it and look at something else because of the sensibilities of the council on that?
Well, I mean, my position, as you all know already, I resume it in a phrase: no list, no head of the list. The sense that for me, we are not in the same phase as in 2014, where we were at the very beginning of a process, and we could try to establish an indirect link between voting for whatever SOTEU, voting for Forza Italia in Italy, and indirectly voting for Jean-Claude Juncker. Nobody among the voters of Forza Italia were really aware that they were voting also for Jean-Claude Juncker, but we were at the beginning of the process, and it was important to go to war along that line. Today we must do everything we can to obtain the transnational list, because the transnational list would allow number one of the list to be the candidate of the European Commission, and all the voters would be aware of this, because they would have a two ballot vote, one for the national constituency, a second one for the EU-wide constituency, and the second one that would be Jean Dupont, candidate of EPP for the European elections. If we don't have the transnational list, I think that we won't have a real Spitzenkandidat process. This is a little bit what I think. It is a little bit a tendency also in the parties. I don't want to prejudge, but at least a part of Renew is already on this line. We will see. And this is why I really hope that the two main groups, which are EPP and SD, which strongly push for the Spitzenkandidat process, will do everything they can to obtain the transnational list, because the two goes together, and the two would be a major improvement for our European democracy, and also for the awareness of the citizens that there is a truly European dimension of democracy. And this is the fight that we have to continue.
So is there a quick remark before you have to go, because I know that you have to go back in the hemicycle soon?
Yes, well, I agree with what Sandro just said. Of course, there is a bit of a difficulty. I think it will be great to see, for instance, Madame von der Leyen. We have heard a bit of her vision for the next few months to run as a candidate of EPP for President of the Commission. But of course, why should only be Germans the ones allowed to vote for her? Why is it that her name will not be on the ballot in every member state? This is the big issue. This is the big contradiction of our system of European elections. And when I say von der Leyen, I say the candidate, the liberal candidate or the social democratic candidate. They are going to put forward their vision for Europe, their program for Europe, but they cannot be voted in all member states. Having said that, it is true that we have in place the system of candidates for President of the Commission since 2014. If we as political parties, and I'm not saying we shouldn't, it's something that, as it has been said, each party has to decide. But if we as political parties, European political parties, decide not to table candidates for President of the Commission next year because we are not so far getting the transnational constituency, we have also to ponder whether this will be understood by at least a portion of the European public opinion as a regression vis-a-vis what we started in 2014. But I absolutely agree with the principle that if we really want to have a real, true, understood, participated process of candidates for President of the Commission, this has to be accompanied with the transnational constituency.
Well, thank you very much, Domenec Ruiz Devesa and Sandro Gozi for taking the time. I will not hold you any longer because I know that you have to go back to the hemicycle to follow the end of the debate and then all the rest, because you're in plenary after all. But thank you very much for answering the question.
Thank you very
Alexandre, I
much.
don't want to say so.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, thank you, Quentin, for mindfully managing this this question time. I saw we received a lot of comments and questions on YouTube. Lorenzo, who tells us that European federalism is a bit like going to the dentist. You cannot postpone it forever. I do agree, and it's a bit treaty change as well. Huh? I think we've been trying to postpone it for later and later and later. And when the need is going to come, and I think the need has come, it's going to hurt. So yeah, totally agree. And then we have a few questions and comments from Ilaria, who said that the European Commission President said that we must prepare ourselves, be ready for the challenge of history. And I think Domenec Ruiz Devesa and Sandro Gozi said it as well. The Union must be at the level that citizens are waiting for it. You're muted, Quentin.
Sorry, 2 years of pandemic, I still don't know how to unmute myself. It's a bit the history of the EU in itself. I mean, ever since day one, the EU has been about, okay, we just go out of came out of World War II. How do we face these challenges, and then you advance from challenges to challenges. That's for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a little step process. Then another comment from Ilaria, a question actually, how do European federalists intend to be ready for the next event in history and the elections in 2024? Well, the UEF definitely is going to participate in the European elections, not presenting candidates, obviously, because we're not a political organization, but we will certainly incite citizens to vote and to vote for the ideas that would make Europe up to the historical challenge. So voting for people who support treaty change and who want to reform the EU. And then Ilaria has a last question on the Convention for the Reform of the Treaties, and ensure that this topic becomes a priority in the political debate. What is the strategy? Well, the UEF put forward already a campaign, which is still ongoing, actually, collecting signatures from European leaders, academics, civil servants, signatures asking for indeed treaty change. We had an event in Strasbourg on the 9th of May where we presented our conclusions, or the signatures, more than 1,000 signatures, calling for treaty change, to actually the rapporteurs that would present this afternoon the report. So it's a circle at the UEF. And so definitely a signature motivating citizens actually to call and ask for these reforms that we need.
No, for sure. I mean, the topic of treaty changes is not going away. I mean, no matter what happens with the report that will be presented and adopted by the Constitutional Affairs Committee, no matter what member states decide to do or not do regarding that, it's clearly something that is in the air. I mean, like it was said before, you postponing it, but then at some point it becomes like you don't have a choice. It becomes too painful for it to ignore. That is for sure. The question is how long it's going to take, and what will be in there, because I mean it's not. We should not equate treaty changes to automatically like federalism, because treaty change can go both ways. Huh? It's the treaty change will reflect whatever is the consensus between the member states, huh? And that's also where who is leading the member states is also an important matter to decide whether something happens or not and in which direction it goes. And
yeah. Definitely, yeah. It's actually the whole question of, do we want a intergovernmental organization or more like a federalist organization? And I think the longer we wait for reform, if we wait for 30 plus European Union before we reform our funding text, then it's so much more chance to stay in the status quo. When, as our two speakers said, that we will be blocked by a leader that no one elected. I mean, no one besides the citizen of his country who decides the pace of the sanctions against Russia, for instance. So yeah, I would say sooner rather than later for treaty change is the best option if we want to make sure that these change democratize the European Union, giving more powers to the European Parliament, making sure that the President of the European Commission is recognized, because we will have a transnational list that all European citizens can vote for. So yeah, definitely these are the few of the changes that I hope will be proposed this afternoon by the AFCO rapporteurs.
We'll have to see this afternoon what's on the table.
Yeah.
Apparently, Mr. Gozi didn't want it to spoil, so
no,
we didn't get an exclusive, but
no. And
just a few hours away.
We don't know what's in the text, so we'll see. It's getting. I'm impatient. So yeah, thank you. You can also continue to leave comments and questions in the chat. Thank you for all of you who joined this meeting. We will continue a little bit more answering your questions and commenting on the SOTEU speech 2023 by the President of the European Commission. Quentin, there's something we didn't really discuss so far. Do you think there will be a von der Leyen Commission number 2?
Well, first, von der Leyen has to decide to say whether she wants to run or not. That's a big question mark. I think that she is the most she's the easiest candidate for everyone, because she's an incumbent. She's already there. She has good relations with the council. She has the decent relations with the parliament. So she is a natural candidate. That's for sure. And if she was to run, I don't think she would meet a lot of resistance, either from the council or the parliament. But so far, she has chosen not to say anything, both for political reasons, because the day she decides, she says I want to come back. She make herself vulnerable to political attacks, and also it takes her out of a position which is supposed to be neutral as president of the European Commission. It places her as a candidate, so it would complicate a bit things for her at this stage. So that's why I was not expecting her to say anything during the speech. And in any case, it would have been a bit awkward for her to do like a campaign speech during the SOTEU. So we'll have to see whether she wants to come back, but she's the easiest candidate, that's for sure. She would that would let's say prevent a lot of headaches if she on the choice of candidate, if she was to run again. But
yeah, that's true.
Then again,
to announce herself too early would be difficult, especially that, as you said, she's the number one. The easiest choice for now. I mean, there are a few names circulating, but it's a bit far-fetched, I would say. Well, not far-fetched, but let's say there would have been steps to confirm that those names really have a chance at securing the seat. So yeah, she would be the obvious choice. So to say too soon would be maybe detrimental to her probable campaign. We'll see. I don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, then again, everything can happen. Everything can happen. Ursula von der Leyen came out of nowhere in 2019, pretty much. So who knows?
That's correct.
We might have surprises. So
yeah, we have a few more questions on the live stream. Louisa, Ursula von der Leyen pointed to the need for a strong European capacity to pursue de-risking instead of decoupling.
That's about China, which isn't really new, because so there's been a change of the policy of the strategy of the EU regarding China, which in the past was I always forget the exact triptych. It's China is considered a competitor, partner, and a rival.
Yeah, strategic rival. Yeah.
Strategic rival, and now Ursula von der Leyen has been changing the approach to the de-risking approach. possibly following the exchanges and in the influence of the US, because Ursula von der Leyen has enjoys good relations with the president of the US, Joe Biden, and including on China. But indeed, it's been a recent change of tack in the EU strategy of saying, okay, we don't want to decouple ourselves, so we don't want to stop every exchanges that we have with China. So in this on this front, the EU is still taking a bit of a different strategy than the US, for instance. Rather, they say, okay, we need to de-risk. We need to make sure that whatever exchange we have with China does not cause a strategic risk for the EU. It doesn't create dependency. It doesn't create vulnerabilities for us. So that's where you link to the question of subsidies. You link the question of access to critical raw material. You have access to certain technology. Prevent China from accessing certain sensitive European technologies. So recently, the Commission presented the strategy for economic security, strategic security, where they would be banning the certain companies. They would like to ban companies from transferring to China certain technologies that are particularly sensitive, related to AI, to quantum computing, because there would be a risk that China could use this technology and turn them against us. So that's part of this new narrative of the de-risking approach on China.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, something that was not really said in the State of the Union speech is actually an unsaid attack on the American Inflation Reduction Act. I mean, she didn't mention this nor the United States, but when she talked about that European international competition should be fair, definitely there was a hint at the transatlantic partner
Yeah, there were hints here and there to the IRA. Even if when she was talking about fair competition, I think she was mostly referring to China, but there is indeed also the US in there and all the questions around the IRA, and it's linked more to the idea of industrialization in the EU, how to make sure that in the EU we still have an industry, and particularly on a clean industry, green the green industry. So that's where there are more references to the IRA, but I think von der Leyen herself still points more towards China as the main problem in terms of unfair competition on the international level.
Yeah, definitely. And she also tried to also make a bridge with India, actually, when she talked about this new partnership.
Sounded
is
a
it
lot,
playing India against China, or?
I think so. I mean, the way she was describing, so he's saying, yeah, there's a new partnership with India and the Middle East, and like the way she was describing it, it was pretty much us saying, okay, there's a new Silk Road that we're building between Asia and the EU, and it's not China, it's India with our partner. So I think indeed there is here the idea of saying, okay, we don't have to rely actually on China. China is an important partner, but it's not the only option. We can do a lot of things with India, and by doing this corridor towards the south through potentially the Middle East, that can be a way for us to build economic prosperity with Asia, but without relying so much on China. Even if on India, the question of trade with India is always a very difficult one, because India is a very protectionist country. It's very protective of its market, but there's been discussion around it, and there's been attempts to try to unfreeze, let's say, the discussion with India. But clearly, there was. I mean, when she was describing it, I was hearing the new Silk Road, but it will be India basically. So, indeed, it's interesting to see how she's pitching this way of circumventing, in a way, China.
Yeah, indeed. And also, I think there's probably more similarities between India and Europe rather than China and Europe. I mean, we speak English. I mean, English is the shared language, the democracy.
More than language, yeah, it's more the on the democratic principle. I mean, even if India has its own problem, but I mean, often people refer to India as the biggest democracy in the world. So it's for sure that in terms of model, there is more closeness, there's more similarity between the more of atome as we say in French. So there's more of willingness to do things together with India than potentially with China. But it's not without its challenges.
Of course.
The Indian government is not okay. It's a democracy, but it's not a perfect one by any means. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we anticipate also the next question of Luisa about the international role of the European Union. And yeah, definitely. I mean, also India is part of the BRICS, and this Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And I mean, the last month, we saw that I don't know, they try to detach themselves from the current world order, let's say, or at least try to find ways to strengthen themselves together, this block of these emerging economies. So if the European Commission is ready, or if the European Union is ready to make privileged economic contacts with one of these members, so the BRICS, the India, sorry, then definitely it's also an important point to keep in mind.
No, and there is a realization, I think, that there's been already a decoupling from the developing countries, let's say, and the EU, and that was particularly seen with war in Ukraine, where these countries refused to pick a side. And we see in Africa the links, or the relation between some member states, particularly France, in Africa, degrading with under the influence of Russia, etc. So there is a realization that the EU must like recreate links, positive links with these countries, and that it's not so much as granted as they might have thought in the past. And you can connect that as well to the discussion around Mercosur, the trade deal with South America. So it's a very complex equation where you have, on the one hand, you have strategic interest to rebuild to rebuild links with these countries, because otherwise they're going to follow maybe China, they maybe going to follow Russian narrative. But at the same time, these countries may have issues that we not necessarily like. The Mercosur is a trade deal currently is held up because of environmental concerns. So it's a balance between the different interests. Do you privilege having the deal, having strategic links with them, or the fact that you want the Green Deal, you want them to take to do their part to fight climate change, etc. So it's a very complex equation, that's for sure, and it's not as evident as it might have been. Well, evident, it never was evident, but maybe the EU thought it was granted in the past that they should be with us, let's say.
Yeah, I hope we answered your question, Luisa. Don't forget that you can leave questions and comments in the chat on YouTube. We're seeing it and we're answering to it. Quentin, one thing that the president of the Commission was very happy to say is that the Commission has an incredible success rate of 90% of her promises passed into law, or at least tabled. What do you think this is due? Do we have to trust this number of 95%?
I think they said 92, but
yeah.
I think 92. I mean, it's always to be taken with a grain of salt, of course, because the Commission has an interest in bolstering the number and say, "Oh, look, we're delivering." I haven't analyzed in detail everything that they're saying, but what has to be said is that the EU managed to deliver quite a bit, particularly knowing that there were two major crises that were not anticipated: COVID and the war in Ukraine, which changed quite a lot of things for the EU, and also changed the priorities. But on many things, the EU managed to go forward. Maybe not as far as some would have liked, or even the Commission itself would have liked. But there's been some movement forward and progress. Sometimes because of the crisis, because it suddenly removed a number of blockage from some member states, or even ideologically there was something that got unlocked because of the whole strategic autonomy kind of discussion, etc. So I would say yes, this commission has delivered, has done a lot. Is it 92%? I would not put my hand on the table and be judged on that. So that's for sure. I would leave that to journalists to analyze and look in the details whether actually it is indeed 92% of everything, or if it's a bit more nuanced than that.
Yeah. Although I think if the number is not to be followed exactly, at least it reflects a certain truth that this commission was able to deliver. Ursula von der Leyen, when she took the seat of president of the commission, she promised a geopolitical commission. I think she quite achieved that goal. I mean, personally, that's the first time I saw a commission, or I hear about a commission that is so ambitious first and that was able to deliver so much. Also, despite the succession of crises that we had to face. So, for me, this term is mission accomplished in a way.
I mean, yes, this commission is more geopolitical. At the same time, it was also helped by events and forced by events, like the war in Ukraine forced a lot of things on the geopolitical level because of particularly on the topic of dependencies. Without the war in Ukraine, I don't think Germany would have agreed to decouple itself from Russian gas, and the same for a number of countries. So the exceptional circumstances removed a number of blockage, let's say, and this topic of geopolitical. I mean, it's always to be taken with a grain of salt, because what do you put behind geopolitical? I mean, the EU still doesn't have a military power. It doesn't have art power per se. It doesn't have an army or whatever the Commission may boast in terms of defense policy, and it's not going to have a European army anytime soon. That's for sure. But I think that's like the clear winner, or the key factor there is this idea of strategic autonomy. That really, I've been in Brussels for 10 years now, so I can look back a little bit. 10 years ago, the idea of strategic autonomy, people would have laughed at your face. They would say, no, we're not doing. What is this weird French protectionist idea that you're pushing forward? Now, strategic autonomy is pretty much in every single EU proposal. So there's been a change in that, and maybe to an extent an end of naivety, maybe for the EU, that actually maybe the world is not as rosy, as multilateral as it might have thought back in the day, and that the EU has a need to also assert itself and protect its own interest there. So I think it's a accumulation of things that allowed the EU to be maybe a bit more assertive in some areas. But geopolitical per se, that may be a bit pushing, because geopolitics relies on foreign affairs, and foreign affairs rests very much in the hands of member states. And we see already that whenever it's not a consensual topic, it becomes more difficult for the EU to do anything really meaningful, at least independently.
Okay, then let's say a political commission, a more political commission.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, the rise of the political commission has been a long time trend. The Juncker Commission was the first one to call itself like the political commission, but you could already see hints of that already in the Barroso Commission. Already there was this idea of politicizing the commission a bit more. But indeed, since 2014, there's a big push forward of the commission becoming more political to that extent.
I also noted that Ursula von der Leyen proposed Mario Draghi to author a report on Europe's competitiveness. That's also competitiveness is also one of the important words. I think during last year's State of the Union address, that was one of the most put forward words. So now there's a true European figure that will be tasked with this report. What do you think? Do you think it's
competitiveness has always been like a big buzzword for the EU because it relates to the single market. The single market is like the big thing of the EU. She's EPP. She wants to. It was a speech also to appeal to the EPP. So competitiveness is always something that is very endearing to the EPP. Then indeed, bringing out a personality like Mario Draghi, which is universally respected in the EU bubble and beyond, is definitely something that will make sure that the proposals are taken serious. It's a way to say, okay, I'm not just speedballing something, me on top of the 13th floor in the Berlaymont. I'm asking to an expert, and that also means that what he says will have some authority. So that we will be inclined to actually follow up through it. So yeah, I think the Mario Draghi name drop is a way to say, okay, we're serious about the question of competitiveness for the EU.
Yeah, I take the opportunity to thank Davide Negri once again, behind the scene, who is making all these shiny adjustments to your screen. So thank you, Davide. You can also leave your questions and comments in the chat on YouTube, and it's a pleasure to answer to them. Quentin, is there anything else that you take from this year's State of the Union address?
Looking at my notes, we discussed already China. We talked about the Green Deal a little bit. Migration was not discussed a lot, actually, even if it was something that I would have thought that it would be more discussed, because it's a bit of a hot topic. There's been some progress on that, because the question of migration policy, asylum policy, has been like a bit in limbo or a perpetual topic ever since the migrant crisis in 2015, and recently the member state managed to clutch a deal on migration, the Migration Pact, to try to bridge the difference between the so-called like frontline countries, so Greece, Italy, the countries that bear the brunt, let's say, of the migratory pressure, and get a bit more solidarity from the other member states. So either they may take a number of migrants within their countries there. So that was something where there's been some progress, but lately the attention has been mostly about the deals between the EU and other countries. Lately with Tunisia, with basically the EU paying other countries to stop migration at their border, like reproducing a bit what the EU had done with Turkey back during the migration crisis. And there, Ursula von der Leyen just said, okay, on migration, we had this deal with Tunisia, and we want to do the new standard, and we'll do that with other countries in around our borders. Which of course not everything is a fan of, and the socialists, the Greens in GUE were pretty critical of that, if I'm not mistaken. I'm double checking my notes, but yeah, they're definitely not fans of this, because they consider it's not humane enough. It's a bit paying off the other countries to manage migrants that we don't want to deal with, pretty much.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit on the reception of the State of the European Union. I think it's mostly, to me at least, it looks mostly like a Brussels bubble exercise, where followed only by people in the know. I think in France, you mentioned, I saw it on your Twitter feed, that only one channel broadcasted it live, one TV channel.
France TV, and maybe, but I'm not sure, France 24, maybe, but I know last year they did, but I don't know whether they did this year. But the place of the State of the Union, okay, for the most part, it's true that at the moment it's a mostly Euro bubble kind of event. But I think it's still, and that it's true that the bubble is a bit overhyping, like as the big thing, etc. The speech that would change everything in the year. At the same time, I think it's even if it may seem a bit artificial or apolitical from the outside, I think it's a necessary process, because it's a way to an institutionalization of EU politics. And EU politics is not just like publishing laws, regulation, press release, etc. You need the incarnation. In a moment where you have when people say, okay, this is the EU, this is what the EU wants to do. And that's what the State of the Union was designed to do. The State of the Union was designed to copy a bit what exists, what is called the State Union of the Union in the US. And the moment where you can point to citizens and say, okay, that's the one moment, if you want to look at, know about EU politics and see what the EU politics wants to do, look at the State of the Union. And I think it's a necessary, legitimate thing that the EU is doing by the State of the Union. The problem beyond like the fact of sending it to citizens, which is great, and they should do it because it's an important way to build and rebuild the link between citizens and the EU. At the same time, the problem is the speech in itself. The speech in itself is very much like a checklist for mostly the EU bubble. You don't have like it's also a matter of personality. You don't really have a narrative that someone outside the bubble would relate to. I mean, you and I, we are in the bubble. We can read between the lines of, okay, this is a reference to this policy, this is a reference to that policy, etc., etc. Here, it's a bit more complicated for an average citizen to see what really they want to achieve, because also the competence of the EU being what they are, they may not relate in evident manner to the daily life of citizens. So the content of the speech may also be a bit obscure of it, and that's a bit the struggle of the SOTEU, trying to manage both things, because it's a moment where there is announcement that will mostly interest the EU bubble, but at the same time you need to make something that is accessible, understandable, and relatable for politicians and for citizens. And yeah, it's also a matter of personality. Like I said, von der Leyen is someone who is very keen on communication. She does a lot of communication, very professional communication, but she's not the kind of person who has been extremely good at making it personal. Take the President Juncker was, on the contrary, even if he was a bit of a wild card, when he was speaking, you could relate to what he was saying. And sometimes you could see, okay, this is the moment where he speaks from his gut. It's not something it's a prepared speech, but it's the part like where he speaks with his gut and say, okay, why am I European? Why am I is it something that matters to me beyond the politics? And why is it something that should matter on the higher level? It's a moment where you say, oh, that's the money shot for a politician. And that's the difficult balance that has to be found, and where also the personality of the president matters a bit. In this speech, he was not like the only, let's say, emotional like a kind of string she tried to play was when she made reference to the Ukraine this Ukrainian author who was killed in the Russian strike, and another author being there in the hemicycle to push an initiative directed at Latin America and beyond to try to bolster up support for Ukraine. And in the second round of her speech, when she said, "Oh, the Green Deal for me is something personal because of my grandkids," and those were pretty much the only two moments where you could say like playing a bit on the emotional string. So yeah, that's something that needs to be taken into account when assessing the State of the Union, let's say.
Yeah, although I think this commission was one which was also more keen on communication. I remember, I think, the Franz Timmermans, for instance, he went several times in France, I suppose in other countries as well, but in France, where he spoke about the Green Deal, he explained what he wanted to do. Charles Michel also went on TV French TV, national TV, to explain what he was doing, his role. So, I mean, he's not part of the Commission, but at least the European Union for the last 5 years have been doing more towards the citizens instead just the experts and the people in the
beyond the fact of politician commissioners, the presidency council going out there to try to present what the EU is doing. I think the previous commissions were keen to do that as well. You have the matter of personalities. Some commissioners, some people are more equipped and willing to do that. Not everyone is a Vestager, not everyone is a Timmermans, not everyone is a Thierry Breton. And also you had a willingness from the media also to give a bigger place to these people, bearing in mind that you have to bear with the language barrier sometimes. Like you mentioned the example in France, but because these commissioners are able to speak in French, I'm not sure Thierry Breton was allowed on German TV or on Slovenian TV, let alone on Polish TV. So there is also the barrier of the language. But generally speaking, yes. I mean, at least in some countries, I can speak for France, there's a bit more willingness to have like high-level EU politicians come to speak about what they do. Even if, in my opinion, that's still not enough, and Europe is still like seen as a secondary topic, I would say.
Yeah. Okay, we have another question from YouTube. What about the Green Deal? Will it be watered down? And what about Europe's position as leader of the fight against climate change? So I definitely don't think that the Green Deal will be watered down. It's one of the major achievements of the Ursula von der Leyen. So I don't think it's in her objective to diminish it. And I think, the most of it is already accepted. The question is more, do we want to continue further, or do we want to take a pause to make sure that it is implemented correctly? I think that's where we stand at the moment. And definitely Europe will remain a leader in the fight against climate change, the first continent to be climate neutral by 2050. I think we're still on the forefront of that fight. What do you think?
I agree that the EU will remain like the leader in the fight against climate change, because we already like the continent that has taken the most policy, that is the most ambitious on that. That doesn't change, partly because the others are so much behind and not necessarily willing to do much about it, which is another problem. Then on whether the Green Deal will be watered down, wait and see, because again, like you have in her speech on the part on the Green Deal, von der Leyen was pretty much checking the boxes for the EPP, because the EPP lately has been a bit revolting. Maybe revolting might be a strong word, but at least resisting to the Green Deal, that they consider going too much on the left and too much of a burden on farmers, etc., etc., etc. So in her speech now, she's been on the contrary, like putting the Green Deal more on the competitiveness, farmers, agriculture kind of side of thing. You could see that it's a signal. The way I interpret it, it's a signal that the Green Deal will go a bit more to the right in terms of center of gravity. So some would say that it will lead to watering down of the ambitions of what the Green Deal was, particularly since the commissioner who was in charge of that, Frans Timmermans, left the commission, and he was like someone who was very pushy on the topic, and he's going to be replaced by an EPP commissioner who maybe will not be as pushy as him. So there is a concern that the Green Deal is a bit losing traction, or at least ambition, could lose some ambition. But on a more political level, there is also an electoral reality, is that why the Green Deal was something that was fairly consensual in 2019. Everyone was on board with the Green Deal. Citizens were on board with the Green Deal. There was no problem. The more we advanced, the more resistance started to show up, even at national level, even among citizens, because we went from the Green Deal being a bit of a concept, the cool concept, to something that could impact people, people in their daily lives. And some of them are saying, "Oh well, actually, that's impacting me in a way that is disproportionate." And so actually, I don't agree with that. I think it's going too far, and that's something that you're seeing a bit all over the EU. Like to give a few examples, like in the Netherlands, for instance, you have a new party that started from the farmers, the BBB, that's emerged in reaction to green policies that came from the EU, and it became a reasonably strong political force in the Netherlands that stemmed from resistance to Green Deal policies. Going a bit further back in time, in France, you had the Yellow Jacket that started, it became something completely different afterwards, but it started from resistance to a tax on fuel that was supposed to finance green policies. In Germany right now, the government is in trouble. The Greens are in trouble in Germany because they wanted to push a policy to get people to change their heating system to have something green and to have heat pumps, and they just hit a wall because people said what you're asking for is way too expensive. It's not sustainable for people who are not rich. So there is, I think, a movement of resistance and backlash against green policies around the EU, and also again some form of climate activism that are seen as, rightly or wrongly, I'm not making judgment there, but that are perceived as maybe too radical, too extreme, and so that are losing some people along the way. And because of that, it creates an electoral opportunity, and that's why also the EPP has taken over the past few months a more critical view of the Green Deal, because they see, oh, there are things, that's something electorally to be taken there. I'm not obliged to follow the left on these topics. There are people actually who are resisting, and if I don't tap into that, well, the far right maybe will tap into that, and I will be losing. So there's also a political context that is more difficult for the Green Deal, and the whole paradox of this thing is that you have more political electoral resistance to green policies, but at the same time, all the indicators are saying that we're not doing enough. So you have on the one hand people who could say, yeah, the science says that we should go even harder on the green policies because we're already behind on the objective that we set for ourselves. But at the same time, people are not willing to accept already the rules that are in place, and you can't do the Green Deal without social acceptability, because otherwise it's gonna blow up. So you have two very contradictory pressure there that you need to balance out, and that's going to be this balance that will decide the fate or the follow-up to the Green Deal that we see now. And we more and more we're seeing a discourse saying, okay, maybe now we don't need necessarily more new rules, but rather like a proper implementation of them to make sure that already what we have is going to be properly applied, make sure that there is social acceptability, social justice, because there's a whole aspect on how do you make sure that the Green Deal, green policies are not done against or to detriment of poorer people. So that's also another dimension of the Green Deal that needs to be tackled. So yeah, we're not done with the Green Deal, but it has become politically a bit more complicated.
Yeah, well, with as other policies. So, but yeah, interesting take. So if you viewers have more questions and comments, please ask them in the chat. One last topic that we can talk about. You, Quentin, followed the discussion. I mean, the answers from the presidents of the political groups to the speech. What can you tell us about it?
Well, I mean, nothing extremely out of the ordinary. I mean, the EPP seemed pretty happy with their president. Like again, she checked a lot of boxes. She ticked a lot of boxes from the EPP wish list. So it was Manfred was rather happy about it. The only thing that I thought was more rather interesting was at the end of his speech, he said, "Okay, we need now EU a new project. We had the last big project that we had was the euro, so the currency, and we need something new. We need something else, like to follow up to. What's the next step? And he said the next step should be and could be European defense. And so the next big project for the EU should be European to set up a proper European defense by 2030. So I thought it was interesting that he pushed on the EU defense. Yes, that's something that the EPP has done in the past, but that he equates that to a project like the currency, like the euro. That's rather interesting and bold as a way to present that. So I thought that was interesting. There was within the SND and the Renew Europe, there was a lot of talk about reindustrialization linked to the climate change and the Green Deal, which also was interesting. Whether on the left side of things, the SND and the Greens particularly bashed the EPP because of the temptation of some in the EPP of becoming a bit more friendly to the far right in Europe. We're seeing that already in Italy, in Finland. We had a temptation in Spain at some point. There is a temptation in Spain, and the EPP got fairly criticized by the SND and the Green of saying, you claim to be part of the pro-European, you to be part of the Van der Leyen coalition. You want us to work with you, but at the same time, you want to work with the far right to weaken the Green Deal, to weaken a number of things. And no, that's simply not going to fly with us. And they're a bit saying you are hypocritical. So decide whether you are pro-European center right or whether you want a stronger alliance with the far right. So there was a bit of a pushback on that. And maybe the other thing that was I thought a bit interesting was the ECR. So the Polish speaker who was in full Polish election mode. So it was like a whole rant about the Commission being terrible. So he said that there is something rotten at the core of the EU. The migration is a failure. And like going a bit into the cultural war kind of aspect of thing, which was like he was very much playing for an audience back at home for the Polish election, basically picturing the EU as this super woke project that could endanger member states. And how dare the Commission say something to member states that they're just an administration, which the Commission is not just an administration, but really a willingness to point like the Commission in the EU as something that is going beyond the boundaries and violating what the EU is, and only hinting at only Poland is resisting for what the EU really is. So that was a bit more of an electoral move from the ECR.
Okay, thank you so much. Then Quentin, MEPassistant, where can we find you on your social media?
You can find me on Twitter, MEPassistant. You can find me on Twitch, same thing, MEPassistant. You can find me on pretty much all social media as MEPassistant. I do humor, I do a lot of vulgarization where I explain EU politics to young people, news review, a lot of different things. So yeah, I'm everywhere. You can find me.
Cool. Excellent. What's your program for the days to come?
Well, I took half a day off today to be able to do the State of the Union, etc. So I will have to this afternoon. I will have to go to work, go back to work, and tonight I'm continuing with a stream in French with an MEP Valérie Hayet, where we will discuss a reaction analysis of the State of the Union. So my day is not yet over on the State of the Union.
Well, thank you for taking time to be with us today.
Thank you for the invitation.
It was all super interesting. I hope our viewers, here is your Twitter channel. I hope our viewers enjoyed this moment. I hope, and it would be nice we do this more often. So if you liked it, give us a like, subscribe to the UEF's YouTube channel, also UEF social media, to Quentin's social media too. Very interesting. You see memes, you see comments, you see videos. So do subscribe. Thank you very much. Have a nice day, and stay tuned because switch to the European Parliament's live web stream, because at 2:30 there is the presentation, the press conference of the AFCO report for a treaty change. So if you're interested in what the European Union could look in the years to come, I strongly encourage to visit this page and this conference. So thank you again. Thank you, Quentin. Thank you, Davide, in the back. Thank you to our viewers, and see you next time.
Bye-bye.
All right.